After a rough day at the office, we've all fantasized about chucking it all, quitting our job, and going off to a faraway place. Unfortunately, reality sets in and we put that fantasy to rest. Well, one man didn't. He gave up a high-paying executive job to live on the remote islands of Indonesia. You'll see the results of his one-year-long adventure of a lifetime. All that and more tonight on Nitebeat. Have you ever found yourself fed up with your job and dreamed of leaving the daily grind behind for a bit of adventure into the unknown? Well, if you're like me, you probably have, and you're not alone out there. Our next guest, Jim Nelon, jumped ship from his executive work life. For a year, he traveled solo into some of the remotest regions of Indonesia and other places, staying with and writing about and photographing the area's landscape and people. Nelon is now the author of Pursuing a Dream, a wandering executive's journey into Indonesia. He joins us now to talk about his very unique and very adventurous experience. Welcome to the show. You've done what a lot of folks wish they would have had an opportunity to do, or were too scared to do, I should say.
Well, thanks for having me, Sarah. It was a very different lifestyle for nearly a year that I had a chance to do. I grew up in Oklahoma, and I was able to spend one summer living on an island in a lake between my junior and senior years in high school. And I would lie out at night and look up at the stars and just wonder, well, what in the world is that all really about? And of course, you can't go to the stars, but you can go halfway around the world and see people that you might not normally see.
So you spent all these years in computer software and executive life. I mean, you were living the life, limos, traveling first class, and then all of a sudden, boom, we change pace and you end up in Indonesia.
I would go and I would go. The premise of the book was to go as far away from anything that I knew as possible, where there's no running water. One person's toilet is the next person's water supply. There's no electricity. They use oil lamps at night for light. Actually, they go to bed when it gets dark.
And you can see, I mean, Indonesia is a country full of so many different islands. What did you begin to discover as you started to meet the people and see what their life was about?
I found that they were the happiest people that I had run into.
Really?
They are totally unwound from the daily pressures of things. They grow all their own food. They make their own houses. They make houses out of bamboo and rattan woven mats and stuff. And they live in their houses in very remote areas. They are very self-contained. There's a chieftain and a shaman. The shaman is the religious head of the village. The chieftain is the mayor or selectman of the village. And they have their own society.
I love some of the photographs, and this is what's great. You just have so many photographs that bring these culture and people to life. The one that you chose for the cover of the book with the man and the rooster, what did you find about him, or how did he exemplify the people of Indonesia?
He's doing something that's illegal. He's
Really?
selling his rooster as a fighting cockfighting.
Oh, wow.
And he has the rooster underneath his shawl because he's protecting the rooster from sight from the police, the market police who are there. And so the thing that intrigued me about Indonesia is the borderline, everybody does pretty much whatever they want to be doing, just shy of the law. And the law isn't quite as intense there as it is here. It's always written down, but it's not enforced, really.
You had some other neat pictures showing some different weapons, a man with a bow that he had back. What did you find in terms of the way that they lived their primitive lifestyle?
It's just fascinating. The areas in Borneo that I was with the Iban tribe, they're a head-hunting tribe. And one of the pictures in the book is of what they call their mandau. It's about a 3-foot-long, sharp as a razor, sword almost, because it's longer than a knife. And that's what they use when they go out and do the head hunting. And I found just after I left the Iban tribe in Borneo that they did go on a rampage, and they sliced off about 1,000 heads.
Is that what we're looking at right there, for
That's
example?
what we're looking at right
and
there.
And that looks like human hair on those.
That is human hair. It's a 200-year-old mandau with human hair on it.
Wow.
And that's what they go out and use as their weapon of choice.
What was your most poignant moment for you during your trip in Indonesia?
Oh, there were many, but I think the biggest one was with the water buffalo sacrifices in the island of Sulawesi.
Oh, I saw some of those pictures looking through. I mean, the slit right through the throat. You can see a couple of buffalo kind of fighting right here.
These are fighting buffalo, and after they fought, then they moved them across the road, and they sacrificed 5 a day for 3 days. That was a very expensive wedding because the guy was very rich.
So this was for a wedding then?
This is for a funeral. Sorry, did I say
for
right?
a funeral.
Funeral.
How did you get into these people's lives? How did they let you in at some of their most intimate funeral, weddings, whatnot moments that you capture in the book?
There's a very definite protocol to meeting the people. You find the chieftain and you find the shaman of the village first. And you sit in a circle with all the other adults, and the kids are running rampant. They're running everywhere. They're making all kinds of racket. But the adults are sitting kind of quietly, kind of sizing each other up. And after about maybe 30 to 45 minutes of sizing each other up, there's something that happens. And I never figured out what it was, but there was something that happened where the chieftain said, "It's okay now. It's okay to invite this white guy into our midst." And they would then go and bring the mandal out. They would not have the mandal showing anything at all like that. None of their finery, none of the things that they would wear to fine events, to annual events, to harvest festivals, to planting festivals. They bring all of that out only after this 30 to 45 minute kind of...
Almost kind of like they trusted you now that maybe you passed muster, you were okay.
There was a trust that became, and it also helped that I would have some pictures from prior villages, and I would be able to show the picture of that chieftain to this chieftain, and the chieftain could kind of say, "Oh yeah."
What about this picture right here with these three men in red? I'm guessing there's a story behind that.
There is. It's the chieftain in the middle and the shaman and his administrator on either side.
So these are the type of people you'd seek out in the communities when you'd go.
Correct. And they own the village. They manage the village. The village could be anywhere from maybe 50 people to maybe 300 people in the village. They would live in this case in long houses, which is a long house, and they have individual apartments in the long house, and they manage this long house. They manage the whole village.
What did you learn while you're out there in Indonesia and thinking, I led this amazing life, and you're going back into the work world down the road?
Yes, I learned that sometimes we can become a bit too wound, a bit too tight, a bit too frenetic, and it's okay to relax. The cliche is stop and smell the roses. It's overused, but it's perfect, because I would see perfectly happy people who own nothing. They have a bamboo house. They grow food for a living. That's all they do, subsistence level. The women would weave mats for their houses, for the walls and for the windows of the houses, and they're completely self-supporting.
I would think
and happy, very happy.
When you started seeing some of these things, there's a great picture too. They're all wooden. They almost look like, I don't know, mummies or statues. We can kind of see them here.
Towels.
First of all, what is this, and what did you start to think as you saw these things that you had never seen before?
These are effigies in the likeness of the people who had died. So these are recent, in many cases, recent deaths. In many cases, they're 300- or 400-year-old effigies, because they make the effigies, the towels they're called, out of a wood that doesn't disintegrate. And it was very difficult to take pictures of these towels because they were afraid I was going to steal them. They've had a lot of theft with major places around the world, museums who would pay to pay. It'd be a chain of events to steal the towel, and next thing you know, it's in New York City.
What would you say if people said, Jim, I want to do just what you did, take a chance to see.
It.
Really?
Go for it.
Do you have to save the money, plan for it, or just push all that aside?
That's a good question. You have to have money to do it, of course, but the amount of money that you have to have in the jungle in Borneo is $1 a day or less.
Wow.
So it's not expensive to live there. We were paying, in many cases, we were paying much less than $1 a day. In a few cases where we stayed more than a few days, we were paying about $1.25 a day to stay in some place.
And this is just one in a series of 5 books. What other places did you visit?
There are places that I visited in the Philippines, in Thailand, and Malaysia. Those are the other 4 books, and then we'll have a coffee table book.
Did you start to find a similarity or parallelisms between all these countries and the ways that they live their lives?
Yes, they live in the same bamboo houses, whether it's in the Philippines, whether it's in Indonesia, whether it's in Ipoh in the jungle in the northern part of Malaysia. It's the same construction because they have a jungle there. And the jungle provides all of the construction materials that they ever would need for the house. The house lasts about 5 years, and they build another one.
What is it you think that they've found to enjoying life that we just haven't learned yet?
Just a joy to life. A simple way of living that we sometimes get so wound up and sometimes get so frenetic in what we're doing and so wound up in what we're doing. We have April 15th, tax time. They don't have any taxes. They don't have any money. They don't.
I like that. That'll work for me.
And it's just easy. It's just easy, and they're happy. They're smiling. Once they would accept me, then I could spend time with them. I spent days planting rice. I spent days living in the chieftain's hut. spent days just learning their language, 400 words in all of the Batak language as an example.
I must imagine when you ended up back in the corporate world, you would tend to daydream off some days about what you learned and what you lived.
And tend to get tight again, tend to, oh, I got so many deadlines, and get right back into this frenetic, energy-laden society that we're in. But now I can stop and say, no, it's okay. Let's back off.
Well,
Let's
good
take
for
it a
you.
little easier.
Good for you. Maybe if we pick this up, we can all kind of do the same, right? Thanks a lot, Jim. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
And you can catch Jim Nelon's insight into his adventure Wednesday night, May 25th from 5:30 to 8:30 at Maxwell's 148 in Natick, Massachusetts. And to order his book, you can log on to fullcirclebooks.com.